Right now, over in China, there are literally thousands of these highly produced, complete microdramas being generated from scratch
Right.
every single month. And they're being marketed to these hyper-specific audiences of like one person.
Yeah, it's wild.
Meanwhile, back in Hollywood, you've got a 1970s Harrison Ford cracking a whip on screen.
Yeah.
And there is zero traditional CGI makeup involved.
Nothing at all.
It's crazy. We are looking at a creative landscape that is just fundamentally shifting right under our feet. So welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive. If you're listening to this, you are the kind of person who, wants to cut through all the endless noise, the hype, the fear-mongering, all of that. You want to get straight to the actual aha moments about the future of entertainment. You want to know what is actually happening at this crazy intersection of artificial intelligence and cinema.
And we have, honestly, the perfect foundation to figure that out today. We are building this discussion on a really robust stack of data, including a comprehensive 2026 academic and industry analysis. And that was initially sparked by George Lucas's remarks at the 2024 Cannes Film Festival.
Oh, that was such a big moment.
It really was. We're also pulling from these systematic academic reviews that synthesized over 74 different research papers on the subject.
Wow, 74.
Yeah, it's a lot. And that's alongside hard economic modeling from McKinsey and data from the CNC, which is the French National Center for Cinema.
So we've got the receipts, basically.
Exactly.
Our mission today is to explore how AI is, it's no longer just this distant sci-fi concept. It is a present-day reality that is rewriting the rules of Hollywood as we speak. We're going to separate the verified mechanics of this tech revolution from all the doomsday fiction. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
And to do that, we kind of have to start with a moment that perfectly captures the tension of this entire transition.
Yeah, and that happened, like I mentioned, at the 2024 Cannes Film Festival.
Right.
George Lucas was receiving an honorary Palme d'Or, celebrating his entire lifetime of cinematic achievement. And standing there in front of a room full of absolute cinema purists, he delivered this massive reality check.
He really didn't hold back.
No, he didn't. He stated plainly that the integration of AI in cinema is just entirely inevitable. He compared it to the transition from horses to cars.
Which is such a striking analogy.
He basically said, you can say let's stick with horses, but that's not how the world works.
Which is an incredibly bold thing to say at Cannes of all places. But you have to consider who is actually delivering the message here.
Exactly.
This isn't some Silicon Valley executive pitching a new software subscription. This is the architect who literally rewired the infrastructure of modern filmmaking.
Yeah, and to really grasp the historical weight of his perspective, you have to look back at the founding of Industrial Light and Magic, ILM, back in 1975.
Right, because he created ILM out of pure necessity.
Exactly. The tools he needed to visualize Star Wars simply did not exist. So his team just invented them.
They just built it.
They did. They pushed the industry from practical maquettes, those little models, and mechanical motion control right into the digital frontier. They pioneered the CGI that eventually made Jurassic Park possible.
So he really views technology as this constantly expanding canvas.
He does.
So his argument is that this shift to AI is following the exact same historical pattern. Like you get the initial industry resistance, immense skepticism, and then that's followed by this massive, unavoidable wave of adoption that redefines the whole medium.
What's fascinating here is how the bibliometric data completely validates his intuition.
Wait, bibliometric data?
Yeah, so bibliometrics basically track the volume, the focus, and the velocity of academic research. And when you look at the systematic reviews of those 74 articles I mentioned, publications analyzing AI in cinema didn't just pop up overnight.
It wasn't just a sudden trend.
No, not at all. They started this quiet exponential boom around 2016, and by 2024, they hit a massive peak. Researchers were already dissecting, neural rendering, machine learning, and production logistics, and the cultural implications of synthetic media way before ChatGPT made AI a household talking point.
So this transition has been building a really deep foundation for like a decade.
At least a decade, yeah.
I mean, I understand the historical parallel, but I have to push back on this framing a little bit.
Okay, wait on me.
Lucas compares this to moving from horses to cars. But is AI just a new vehicle for a human driver? Or is it basically a self-driving car where the filmmaker is relegated to the passenger seat?
That is the big question.
Right, because didn't the jump to digital CGI already distance us a bit from the tactile, hands-on magic of practical effects? Are we just pushing the human artist even further away from the canvas now?
See, that is the core anxiety of this entire revolution. Are we the driver or are we the cargo? And to answer that, we kind of have to move away from the high-level theory and look under the hood.
Let's get into the mechanics.
We need to examine how these algorithms are actually functioning inside the filmmaking pipeline right now between 2024 and 2026. Because AI is not just a single, generate movie button.
Right, it's not a magic wand.
No, it's a highly specialized suite of tools, and they're integrated into every distinct phase of production.
Okay, so if Lucas is right, and this is a new vehicle, let's look at where the engine is actually running, starting with pre-production.
Right.
Before a single camera even rolls, AI is already analyzing the script. The 2026 industry analysis shows studios are deploying AI to parse the semantic structures of screenplays, generate these incredibly detailed visual mood boards, and even predict box office success.
Which is wild.
And the data shows this is yielding a 5 to 10% increase in productivity just during pre-production.
And you have to realize that 5 to 10% efficiency on a massive studio budget, that translates to tens of millions of dollars and weeks of recovered time. The predictive models are particularly interesting to me. They aren't just guessing. They are mapping the emotional beats and the structural pacing of a new script against decades of historical box office data.
To forecast the return on investment.
Exactly. But I'd argue the most visible leap happens in production and VFX, specifically with de-aging technology. We are looking at tools like Disney's Rune system or neural platforms like Metaphysic.
Yeah, brings us right back to Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones. Dial of Destiny.
Yes.
Or that movie here, where you've got Tom Hanks and Robin Wright, and they're portrayed seamlessly across 60 years of history.
It's incredible to watch.
And what's wild is how this actually works. Because it's not just some fancy Snapchat filter, and it's not traditional CGI either.
Right. Because traditional CGI de-aging, it required artists to manually sculpt a 3D model of the actor's younger face.
That sounds exhausting.
Oh, it was painstakingly slow. They had to meticulously track it frame by frame onto their current performance. And it often fell right into the uncanny valley because human skin behaves so unpredictably under light.
It never looks quite right.
Exactly. But FRAN, which stands for Face Reaging Network, it bypasses 3D modeling entirely.
Wait, really? Entirely?
Entirely. Disney trained a neural network on thousands of synthetic faces, and they use synthetic faces, not real people, to avoid any likeness rights issues.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, so they trained it by aging and de-aging these synthetic faces under literally every possible lighting condition.
So instead of a human artist trying to guess how light should bounce off, a 35-year-old Harrison Ford's cheekbone in a dark cave, the neural network already understands the mathematical physics of that light.
Exactly.
And it just applies it instantly to the footage.
It predicts the pixels based on vast data sets. It's math, not sculpting. But beyond the glamorous face replacement stuff, AI is automating the incredibly mundane elements of VFX, which is arguably way more revolutionary.
Yeah, unglamorous stuff.
Yeah. Take The Mandalorian, for example. The 2026 data highlights how machine learning drastically reduced the need for rotoscoping. And honestly, this is where I get a bit excited.
I can tell.
Anyone who follows visual effects knows rotoscoping is historically one of the most soul-crushing bottlenecks in the entire industry.
Because you're talking about the sheer scale of isolating elements, right?
Yeah.
Traditionally, humans had to manually trace mattes around moving subjects for hundreds of thousands of frames just to separate them from the background.
Frame by agonizing frame.
But now, these neural networks are parsing depth maps and isolating complex geometries like hair or motion blur almost instantaneously.
And by automating that incredibly tedious technical labor, studios are handing VFX artists their time back.
Which is huge.
It frees them up to focus on high-level compositing, lighting integration, the actual creative artistry of the shot. You are essentially removing the friction between the artist's intent and the final image.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because we've been talking about massive Hollywood blockbusters utilizing these tools to save time.
Right.
But if you look at post-production and distribution globally, the scale of AI application is just staggering.
It really is.
The CNC data in the international market analysis points straight to China, where AI is generating entire backgrounds, handling complex editing, and producing thousands of complete microdramas every single month.
And these microdramas, they represent a total paradigm shift in content consumption.
How so?
Well, they aren't just using AI to render the video, they are using distribution algorithms to A/B test narratives in real time.
Oh, wow. So they adjust as they go.
Exactly. The AI identifies these hyper-segmented demographics, mapping incredibly specific user preferences, and then it delivers procedurally generated dramas tailored almost to an audience of one.
It's an ecosystem operating at a velocity and scale that human production pipelines simply cannot physically sustain.
It's impossible for humans to keep up with that.
But that brings us to the inevitable consequence of all this efficiency. Because if neural networks are parsing the depth maps, and algorithms are generating the microdramas, and software is analyzing scripts for box office viability,
I know where you're going with this.
what happens to the human workforce? You cannot introduce a 10% efficiency boost in pre-production and automate rotoscoping without triggering a massive shift in the labor market.
This raises an important question, and it's one the academic reviews confront directly. We really have to examine the dark side of the algorithm here.
Right.
Because the labor displacement is not theoretical anymore. It is measurable. The studies synthesize data showing that up to 21% of jobs in visual effects and animation are directly vulnerable to these AI integrations.
21%. I mean, that is a structural earthquake for the industry.
It's massive.
That represents thousands of highly skilled professionals whose core competencies are just being rendered mathematically obsolete overnight.
And the solutions presented in the research, they really emphasize aggressive industry reskilling.
Okay, so adapting.
Yeah. The goal is to transition these artists from manual operators to AI pilots, teaching them how to direct the algorithms rather than trying to, manually compete against them.
Because you can't beat a computer at math.
Exactly. And we also saw the industry mobilize to establish firm boundaries. I mean, the historic 2023 Hollywood strikes were heavily driven by this exact existential threat.
Oh, absolutely.
The resulting contracts established negotiated protections, ensuring that studios cannot simply discard human labor wholesale in favor of generative models.
But the complications extend far beyond just labor economics, don't they?
Oh, definitely.
They bleed into deeply complex ethical and legal territory. We are wading into the muddy waters of non-consensual deepfakes and the ownership of human likeness.
It's a legal minefield.
Right. If a machine can perfectly replicate James Dean's face, his voice, his mannerisms for a brand new performance, who actually owns that digital ghost?
And the legal frameworks are scrambling to catch up. The research points to regulatory responses like the Elvis Act,
The Elvis Act, right?
which is a legislative attempt to establish some guardrails. It essentially categorizes a person's voice and likeness as protectable property rights.
Okay.
The goal is to prevent studios or tech companies from exploiting the estates of deceased actors or generating synthetic clones of living performers without explicit compensated consent.
But even if we do solve the legal ownership of a face, which is a big if, there is a much deeper philosophical risk at play here. The academic analysis references the renowned French film theorist André Bazin and his concept of indexicality.
Yeah, Bazin's theory of indexicality is totally foundational to understanding the anxiety around AI cinema.
Can you break that down for us?
Sure. He argued that the unique power of film, its soul, basically, is derived from its direct physical connection to reality.
Okay.
When you shoot on a traditional camera, light bounces off a physical object, travels through a glass lens, and leaves a literal physical footprint on a strip of celluloid or a digital sensor.
Right, there's a physical trace.
Exactly. There is an index, a tangible proof that something real existed in that exact space and time.
And generative AI severs that tether completely.
Completely.
Because when a neural network generates a hyper-realistic background from a text prompt, no light ever bounced off anything. It is an entirely synthetic hallucination.
And the fear is that as cinema loses its indexicality, it loses its emotional weight. It becomes totally untethered from the physical human experience.
Which feeds perfectly into the next major creative risk the research identifies, which is cultural and aesthetic homogenization.
Oh, this is a big one.
Right. Let's think about this from the perspective of you, the listener, sitting on your couch, scrolling through a streaming service.
Yeah.
Have you already started to notice a certain sameness in the content?
I think we all have.
Because AI models don't actually create anything out of thin air. They are trained purely on existing data. Millions of images, scripts, and movies that have already been made.
They are essentially incredibly sophisticated pattern recognition engines. They analyze the past, and they predict the most statistically probable sequence of pixels or words to follow.
So if these models are exclusively trained on the past, Aren't we just drinking recycled water?
That's a great way to put it.
If a predictive algorithm is writing the script based on what made money in 2018, and a neural network is generating the lighting based on what looked good in 2022, how does the industry ever get fresh, original ideas?
It's tough.
It feels like a recipe for mathematically averaging out cinema until every single movie looks, sounds, and feels exactly the same.
And that is the ultimate creative challenge of the generative era. If you leave the algorithm entirely to its own devices, you will inevitably get the median average of everything that has come before.
Right.
But the industry's proposed solution, which the systematic reviews highlight as the critical path forward, is a framework called accountable authorship.
Accountable authorship, meaning the human still has to hold the pen even if the AI is supplying the ink.
Exactly. Think of the AI as an infinite intern that is capable of generating an endless supply of clay.
I love that analogy.
The algorithm can give you 1,000 variations of a cityscape in seconds, but it has absolutely no understanding of emotional resonance, subtext, or thematic depth.
It doesn't know what it means.
Right. So accountable authorship means the human director acts as the master sculptor. The human must curate, select, refine, and take ultimate responsibility for ensuring that the final output actually serves the emotional truth of the story.
And the 2026 data provides some really fascinating concrete evidence on how this dynamic plays out in practice.
Yeah, the data is super clear on this.
When researchers studied the impact of AI on content creation, they found that these tools act as a massive leveling mechanism for the baseline.
Right, it raises the floor.
Exactly. AI significantly helps less experienced creators elevate their work. It can fix structural pacing in a script or generate totally competent storyboards. But the top-tier creatives still stand out just as much, if not more.
Because the algorithm optimizes for the expected. And top-tier artistry relies on the unexpected.
This surprise.
Yes, the human element, the lived experience, the weird cultural quirks, the irrational, unpredictable choices that break the mold, that stuff simply cannot be replicated by a machine that is just looking for the most statistically likely outcome.
The machine provides the baseline, and the human provides the magic.
Perfectly said.
And when you look at it through that lens of accountable authorship, AI kind of transforms from an existential threat into an engine of unprecedented democratization.
It really does.
By dramatically lowering the barrier to entry, these tools allow independent filmmakers to compete on a visual level with massive legacy studios.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the economic implications of this democratization are just staggering. The McKinsey data models suggest that this technological shift will result in the redistribution of tens of billions of dollars across the global entertainment economy.
Tens of billions.
Yeah, you are taking the power of a $100 million VFX pipeline and compressing it into software that is accessible to an indie director with a brilliant vision, but just a fraction of the budget.
And the culture is actively adapting to reward this new ecosystem. The academic reviews note the rise of AI cinema festivals.
Which are so cool.
Yeah, and these aren't events celebrating, like an algorithm-generating movie all by itself. They're specifically designed to showcase hybrid works. They celebrate what human filmmakers can achieve when they utilize AI as a collaborative partner to bypass the traditional studio gatekeepers.
Which honestly brings us full circle right back to George Lucas and the legacy of ILM.
Right, where we started.
Because Lucasfilm isn't just resting on its historical laurels here, they are actively driving this hybrid renaissance. The analysis highlights their current experimentation with hybrid short films, like Star Wars, Field Guide.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, their operating philosophy moving forward emphasizes a strict symbiosis of artists plus engineers. It is not man versus machine at all. It is integrating the machine to expand the reach of the artist.
We are truly witnessing a fundamental shift in the grammar of filmmaking. The transition from the physical celluloid of the 20th century to the digital pixel of the early 2000s, it didn't destroy cinema.
No, it didn't.
It simply allowed for stories that were previously impossible to visualize. And now we are transitioning from the pixel to the prompt.
It just multiplies the vocabulary of the medium. As Lucas pointed out, resisting the tool is an exercise in futility. The technology is here, and it is accelerating fast.
So the imperative now is mastery.
Exactly. Filmmakers must learn how to drive the vehicle, ensuring they are steering the creative vision rather than letting the algorithm dictate the destination.
It requires a hyper-vigilant balance, though. The industry has to acknowledge the very real labor displacement of that 21% and enforce the regulatory guardrails like the Elvises Act to protect human rights, all while fearlessly exploring the massive creative potential of these democratized tools.
It's a tightrope walk for sure.
So, what does this all mean for you? As you watch this transition unfold on your screens over the next few years, I really want you to keep one final thought in mind.
Mm-hmm.
We are rapidly approaching a point where AI will be capable of rendering a flawless, mathematically perfect 1970s Harrison Ford. Algorithms will generate hyper-realistic lighting and environments for literally any scene imaginable, polishing every single frame to a digital mirror's shine.
It's going to be visually flawless.
But as everything becomes computationally perfect, will audiences of the future actually start craving imperfection?
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
Right. If every background is flawless and every face is optimally lit, will a visible boom mic, a slight camera shake, or a practical creature effect that looks just a little bit clunky become highly desirable? Think about it. Will 100% human-made become a luxury label in cinema?
Like a badge of honor.
Exactly. Much in the same way that today, we deeply value a handmade wooden table with all its asymmetric knots and tactile flaws, way more than a perfectly smooth factory-made piece of furniture.
Yeah, we like seeing the hand of the creator.
Maybe the true soul of cinema, that indexicality we are so afraid of losing, isn't found in perfection at all. Maybe it's found entirely in the flaws.
That is something to think about.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, may the force and thoughtful AI be with you.